All right, everybody, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk about trades of the day. I find it really hard to show a better trade than that one. Now, I don't have my VWAP on, but this VWAP spin play would have been fantastic, but I wasn't awake for that. So I'm not even going to count that one, but that really was a great play. The one for me today was this retest of the Globex. There was a really good one here when we got the gap close from Sunday night. And then there was the RTH tag here. So those were good, just not as good as this Globex high. And this is a trade that I've talked about in these videos before already. So the idea behind this setup is that before the open, we set a high in the Globex and then we pull back away from that high, but we just hover there. We don't really pull all the way down to like a previous low. And we just pull back and then we're holding steady as we come into the open. I love this setup because the idea now is that we're either going to open and come down and close the weekend gap, or we're going to open and come up and tag that Globex high first and then try to close that gap. It's one or the other, right? And that's a really great setup. With this Globex high, we could break out and run. That is a threat, but there's no catalyst here, right? There's no push. And really, the NASDAQ was just selling off all day, and we were losing all those financials that had rallied up in the pre-market. So as we were coming into the open, everything else was getting really soft, which kind of fed into this idea that we were going to play to perfection the retest of Globex high and then a sell-off. If you go back and you look at how often this setup comes in, on those times where we actually did come up to that Globex high and break out, see what time it is, and then see if there's econ behind it. Because if we got there at 10 a.m. and then we break out and run, it was probably 10 a.m. econ that came in with it, gave it that push higher. So here we failed to close the Globex Sunday night move right there. We started to do it. It gave up and pulled back. And I haven't made this measurement yet, but let's go ahead and jump over to the 5-minute chart and measure this and see how much of that 5-minute move this reversal was. So what I'm measuring is the 5-minute candle. And you can see that this move came down perfectly. 100% of the 5-minute candle was made and then reversed. But we're going to take it back to the tick chart that I trade on. So we made that dip down, ran back up, and tagged that Globex high. For me, that was the trade of the day right there. Now you could argue that a breakthrough of this 200 was a trade, but it was such a vicious drop that I don't see how you could have approached it unless you just jumped on it, right? So after that one, there was the Sunday Open. That's a really nice setup from down here. The thing is, it took a while before it really started to get going because we had that failed test first, and then a little bit of a fake out and a lot of chop, and then the real push. So that was okay if you were willing to hold on through all of that and just hope that it worked. But if you were looking for a really clean test and go, like a bounce and run, that's not it. And so that's why it's not the trade of the day for me. We never did get down to that Globex low. If we had that, I would believe me, I was waiting on that one, but we just didn't get it. We had this little micro double bottom, and it wasn't even a good clear double bottom because it didn't get down and exceed the previous low. Lots of wicks down there showing a lot of defense. A TRB that failed. So the TRB setup was there, but no real follow through, right? It barely got through and then it just stalled out again. So that setup was okay for a couple points, but really nothing convincing. This 2-bar reversal against that pivot point back here. Yeah, okay, except, there's no trust to that one. So I don't like it. And then a run up to the RTH Open. Now, that was a solid play. And the 2 p.m. one. I really feel, though, that most people don't catch those kind of time frame moves as much because I haven't found a way to convince people to watch that clock. But that was a beautiful 2 o'clock reversal on this trend line play. That is a good argument to make, right? It was the Sunday Open. It was the triple touch on the line here, and it was right at 2 o'clock. So a great play and a really, really tight TRB if you wanted to play it that way too. So I like that one. But it's hard to trust that Sunday Open Globex hit after we had trashed it so many times that it just didn't have a lot of respect anymore. Even with this trend line drawn, it was still hard to find any kind of trust for a high conviction trade, but it is there. And it was a great trade. That would have been a really wonderful opportunity. Look at the flow behind that thing. This one, however, absolutely amazing. So I like that. I like this. Those two got it done. Now, I hadn't turned it on. Let's just get these lines out of the way. I mentioned it in the morning briefing that we were messing around with the daily SMA, and it's the 50 period. So that's the 50 period moving average on a daily chart. And when we did that double top failure and we failed to hold above it, that was the end of it. This is like a big Busby on the bottom of that 50. And so far it's playing out really well. I took some options trades today as a swing in the SPX on this move. I also gave a call out on the NASDAQ, but all that's separate, right? The idea here, though, is that the Globex double top was the best trade of the day. And if you didn't catch that one, then a retest of the RTH Open and that rejection was the second one. Either one of those would have been great. There was a TRB, not even really a TRB, just a regular trend line break, but it would have been difficult to play that, right? Just because when we got down into it and it wasn't a clean base and then the quick, fast reversal. So tradable, but it wasn't clean. And you would have had to taken a lot of that on faith. So that's what I had for today. If you traded something else and want to share it, by all means, let me know. What was your trade of the day?